Welcome to Virtual Antics, your go-to podcast for digital entrepreneurs, powered by Nandora.org and NG Virtual Assistant. We're here to guide you through every aspect of business, from networking to lead generation and so much more. Get ready to thrive in the virtual world with expert insights and our all-in-one solution, Nandora, where creating a digital business becomes a breeze. Let's dive in and revolutionize your business journey together. Welcome back to the Virtual Antics podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Guzman, and I am so excited because I have a very, very special guest with me today. He is a filmmaker, author, and master storyteller who honed his craft on hit TV shows such as Grey's Anatomy, Chicago Med, This Is Us, MacGyver, and 24. Welcome, Richard. How are you doing?
Natalie, how's everything?
Oh, everything's fantastic, especially because you're here. Because out of those shows, oh my gosh, I'm a huge Grey's fan. MacGyver, that's me and my husband's date night show.
Very nice.
The newer one. Now, did you work on the newer one? Or
I worked on the reboot, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's our date night show. Absolutely loved it. So I was really interested to have you on the show and kind of hear about your story. And I love that you're into storytelling because I think that's such a huge part of business these days.
It really, really is. All of communication is essentially storytelling.
Yeah, it really is. That goes to your email marketing, your landing pages, even just how you talk to someone, even about your business. They talk about the pitch. Your pitch is basically, like your story outline. So I really love how much thought and intelligence that goes into storytelling. So how did you get into this? Because this is a really cool career.
Well, I've always loved films and TV. And so from a very, very early age, I started making, sort of the classic story. I loved animation especially. And now I'm not an artist. I can barely draw a stick figure. So I started playing around with clay. And I got my parents' 8mm camera and got a cable release and made some little animated movies with clay, going one frame at a time and moving the clay characters. And I ended up this one little movie that I made. It was a 3-minute black and white short, and it ended up winning a Student Academy Award when I was in college. And so I got into the business, and I went to NYU and started working in New York. And then we moved to Los Angeles a few years later. And I've been working in TV ever since.
That is really, really cool, especially because, a lot of kids are fascinated, like you said, with the animation and TV, but that you actually put the action into it. And then that led you down this path is absolutely amazing. I love it. I remember me and my dad, one of the things we bonded over growing up, I never lived with him, but whenever I'd visit him, we would watch a movie. That was our thing. And like I just mentioned, like date nights, me and my husband, we bond over TV. And so I think it's really cool how much movies isn't just something you watch, it's something you create memories with and you bond with people, you come closer to them. I think there's so much more that goes into a movie and a show, and besides just watching it, and the cool thing is I always, especially on certain shows, especially Grey's, I'm like with the writers and the storylines, I'm always like, who comes up with these things and are they okay? Storylines, I'm like, how did you even come up with this?
Well, a lot of times they'll start with a kernel of something real. And then they take what's called creative license and they move through the process of creating the story. And at some point, there's this concept called suspension of disbelief. And the whole point of suspension of disbelief is if you get your audience to a point where they are so involved in the story, then you can, I don't want to say get away with a lot, but you can go to dramatic lengths. And that's one of the cool things about storytelling. There's a psychological concept called narrative transport. Now, Natalie, I don't know if you've ever heard of narrative transport. So it's exactly what you were describing with a movie or a TV show or a symphony or a piece of music that you love, right? So imagine you're sitting at home, you're reading your favorite book or you're watching your favorite TV show and life is going on around you, right? The buzzer's going off, your pizza's burning in the oven, there's someone knocking at the door trying to deliver something, and you don't hear or see or smell any of it because you have been transported by whatever you're watching or reading or listening to another world, and everything else just falls away. And we've all been there. And that is what story is. That's the intent of story, is to take us to other worlds, other places, other characters that we can enjoy, that really take over our lives for a few minutes or a few hours.
Wow, that is crazy. You just listed out what a typical Saturday night at my house. My kids will be creating some disaster in my house, and I am not focused. I don't know what's going on because I am just tuned in. That is amazing. And I love that not only is it like you're so tuned in and transformed into it, but you also feel. So I feel like you
Yes.
feel the emotions, and that's such a powerful thing that, a story can really just make you feel emotions and make you relate, and I think it can make you, grow as a person because it sparks that emotional intelligence as well. Yeah.
Isn't that what we all are attempting to do as storytellers?
Yeah.
Think about the stories that you either tell or hear on a daily basis. And I read somewhere that 85% of all our communication is through story or some narrative structure. And I thought, whoa, 85%, that's a lot. I mean, that means only 15% of what we do on a daily basis is not story-based or not narrative-based. And I thought, that can't be. And then I started reflecting on how I communicate and how folks communicate to me. And I thought, this is entirely true. In fact, it may be more than 85%. Because, think about stories. Story can be just if you go out to lunch or you have a meeting with a colleague, there's one person, right, that you're telling a story to, and they may say, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And you could tell them about Saturday date night, right, where you watched an episode of MacGyver, and you, all of a sudden you're connecting over the shared experience. And even if someone's never seen MacGyver or Grey's Anatomy or whatever your favorite TV show or movie is, you can still explain to them the characters and get them to the point where they say, man, I gotta watch that show, right? And so then you can step it up a notch. And if you're talking to 5 people or 10 people or a room of, say, 200 or 300 people, and you're trying to get a point across about a product or a service or an app or a program, then what you want to do is you want to come and find a common ground through story that you can express yourself through whatever story. Now, again, the founder's story for entrepreneurs and startups is one of the most important stories for folks who are embarking on business, because that founder story is the why and where and how and what of what's transpired, of where this product or service came from. And it's a way for clients and employees to understand why this product or service was created in a way that helps them connect to the founder and the product itself.
That's amazing. When we think about creating a story, we always think of, I know, at least personally, I think of like a writer just sitting at a desk, creating out this beautiful story. But now we have ChatGPT. So it's like a really interesting factor because a lot of people are creating storylines using ChatGPT, but also trying to figure out how to use it and make it work for their story. And this is something you actually wrote a book about. Is that correct?
Yes. So I started working with ChatGPT about 9 or almost 10 months ago. And just when it first came out, because I was working on a workshop called Storytelling for Trainers. And I said, hey, let's, this career tech school wanted me to do this workshop. And I said, fantastic. And I got off the call and I said, okay, wait a second. I don't know anything about trainers. And a friend of mine suggested, well, jump on ChatGPT. Maybe you can learn something, because it's got all this access to information. And so I jumped on and I said, okay, what would a workshop Storytelling for Trainers look like? How would it be organized? And, it came back with some incredible suggestions. Now, some of the suggestions that ChatGPT had in the beginning were, to tell you the truth, they were kind of crappy, right? Yeah. But some of them were really good. And so I took some of the good things and I, threw away some of the bad things. And I came up with this organization's outline for this course, this workshop. And as I was doing that, I thought, well, now wait, some of these trainers may not really feel like they are storytellers. Now, I believe that we're all storytellers. We just have to tell the right story, and we have to figure out what our angle or approach is so that we can get folks interested in that story. And we also tell a compelling or captivating version of the story. And so I thought, how can I help these folks create stories that really exemplify the points that they're trying to make, whether it's about workplace safety or it's about being a leader, whatever it's about, I wanted to help them. And so I came up with a section for this workshop about utilizing ChatGPT to help create or find stories that would work within these workshops that they're teaching to trainees. And it really is amazing because what ChatGPT does is it helps amplify our creativity. It helps heighten the message that we're trying to say or trying to impart. And so it's an incredible tool. And a lot of people are freaking out because, they think ChatGPT is going to end up becoming Skynet, from the movies and rule the world. And it's going to overcome it's going to take over all of our communication. And a lot of people think, oh my gosh, all our communication is just going to be reduced to mush because it's all going to be the same. For instance, Natalie, if you have a prompt that you've used to generate a response from ChatGPT and you say, hey, Richard, check this out. I got this prompt that you can use. If I use that prompt and you've written a blog post and I'm using it to write a blog post, now our blog post may be about totally different things, but they may sound very similar because we use the same prompt. Now, if I take that prompt and I infuse it with my own type of energy, and if I say, okay, I want there to be a sense of humor and interweave some pop culture references, then all of a sudden I've taken that prompt and I've really customized it for myself in the situation. And so that prompt is different than the prompt that you originally gave me. And that is really what's important about using this new technology, ChatGPT in specific and AI in general, is the ability to use it to really harness creativity and expand and amplify our individualism and our own originality.
Yeah, one of my favorite ways to keep that originality in ChatGPT is actually, I'll take something I wrote or like old landing page copy I have, I put it in there and I say, rewrite this. And I love saying a friendly tone because that's how I talk. That's how everyone hear me on the podcast, on social media. And I'm like a very upbeat, friendly, and so that's why I tell it to do. And it creates these amazing, it took what I wrote and it just amplified it. It didn't completely change it, but it just made it so much better. And I absolutely love that. I even use it for like landing page copy. You can say copy and it gives you every single section you need. Oh, yes. It saved us. I think we've saved 20 hours a week so far using ChatGPT. I'm an automations girl. So I know that I save 37 hours a week on using automations and then 20 hours a week using ChatGPT because we develop websites and apps and things like that. And we love it. It's like absolutely amazing. And even if it's just, we even tell it to use SEO keywords and things like that. There's so much you can do with it. I love it.
But ultimately, Natalie, who decides what, if you put a prompt and you get this response generated back, who decides what of that response works and doesn't work?
That's us.
That's right. It's the human beings. And so it's important for folks to remember that this is a tool, just like the calculator is a tool for mathematicians or engineers. I mean, you can't expect an engineer for SpaceX to put a rocket up in space using a pad of paper and a pencil, right? So same sort of thing as we get into more intense, more complex uses of, like you said, SEO and copy and landing page copy. There are ways of approaching it that can really, again, amplify our message, amplify the creativity. But ultimately, we are the arbiters of the information. And so it's up to us to say, that works. Oh, this part right here works within what I'm really trying to say. Or it doesn't quite get to the point the way I was hoping. So let me rewrite the prompt and get another version that really works within the manner of, like you said, you ask it to give a friendly tone. Well, that's your way of customizing a prompt so that it says, this came from Natalie.
Yeah. And I think it's just, there's so many really great ways to utilize it. And we've done everything from bios to flyer copy to images to social media posts to email newsletters, which the email newsletters, that one I had to work a lot on. I noticed more than any other type. It was the emails that, like I would say, create a lead generation email talking about this as this, and it just didn't hit. So I think I have to play around with that a lot more. And it's just really cool powerful tool to like just really help us get our message across. And you can even we just helped a client with their business pitch, right? Elevator pitch, so important. Yeah. You were talking about stories, and I was like, brought me back to this time. I was actually on this entrepreneur competition show called The Blocks, a reality show. So much fun, by Wes Bergman from MTV's Challenge. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. My season is airing right now, actually, so you can see.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's so cool. But we had to, it was a competition. So we would learn about something, and then we would get asked questions on what we learned, and we'd have to explain it. But the first thing we had to do was give an elevator pitch before we started. And the person that ends up winning, I won't say who because that episode hasn't aired yet, but she had a amazing storyline, and her story connected with people. It made them feel for her situation, even if they've never been in her situation before. And that's what they said at the end. They're like, she won because she had a really great story. She made us feel these feelings, and every answer she gave us was wrapped up into her story. So it was just a really, really cool thing. It showed me right then and there how powerful not only your pitch is, but your story. And so
true, Natalie.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And that's also why I love podcast guesting, right? Because you get to tell your story across multiple platforms. And I have a whole crazy life story. And so I love wrapping in because it goes into my business. And it's so powerful that you can make people move. And now we can not only make them feel things and connect with them, but we can also use ChatGPT to help streamline that process. So what better?
Yeah, it really is. And you can use ChatGPT also to help brainstorm, to help outline and think about ways of approaching something, again, whether it's your founder's story or whether it's a copy for a landing page. You can use this technology to help think outside the box. And that's one of the things that really impressed me most about the technology. And so you mentioned that I wrote a book. It's called ChatGPT Simplified. And now I'm not a coder. I'm not a programmer. I'm a storyteller. And so when I started using ChatGPT, I was using it to help me tell stories better, to help me connect with folks in my workshops and my seminars and when I consult. And so I thought, oh my gosh, there are people out there who are going to be really intimidated by this technology because they don't know how to use it. And I mean, think about it. The terminology is prompt engineering, right? I mean, that's not conducive to creativity. You think, I mean, the people out there who aren't engineers and aren't mathematicians or aren't scientists, they hear a word like prompt engineering and they go, whoa, no, that's not for me. Because there's a certain context of engineering that is imprinted in our brains. And so what I did was I approached this technology as a tool, but a tool that can be used for incredible creative purposes. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book that presents this tool, this technology, ChatGPT, in a way that folks can understand it and enjoy working with it. Because as you said, the first prompt that you write, the second, or even sometimes the fifth version of a prompt doesn't return the exact response you want. And it's a process. It's an iterative process that you keep working on the prompts, but you also keep learning more information about how to use the technology. And then as you apply that information, you get better and better. I mean, it's like learning anything. The more you do it, the better you get, the more you're able to apply what you've learned and reassess. It's a pretty incredible process. And GPT is a very iterative program in and of itself because it's continuously sort of monitoring and filtering how users are approaching it. So I'm sure you've noticed that as you go through and you start typing in information and you get responses, it says, hey, was that better or worse? Was it the same? And you say it was better. And then all of a sudden it incorporates that response into its overall approach to how you're creating things within the program. And so it learns as you learn. So it's this incredible experience of going through and figuring out how this whole thing works and really utilizing it to amplify whatever message you're trying to get across.
That's absolutely amazing. And we definitely have to check out your book because it sounds like we have so many good information and nuggets to help us really improve our storytelling. So where can we find it, you and your book?
My website is aiexplained.ai. And you go right there at the very top. There's a link to my book on Amazon. And then there's also a link to a free book. And if you want to get a hold of me, down at the bottom, you can send me an email. It's richard@aiexplained.ai. But it's, I approached the book. One of the chapters is about Alice in Wonderland. Because I started thinking about, as I was going through this program and coming across these weird ways of it telling me information about, workshops. And I started thinking, this is like being in a playground or a wonderland. And then I wrote a chapter, of course, with everything's with the aid of or enhanced by ChatGPT. And I created this one chapter about personal and professional growth, but viewed through the eyes of Alice going into Wonderland and the Red Queen and the Mad Hatter and the Cheshire Cat. And it's really aligns with the experience and the exploration of ChatGPT on a personal level from me or you or any other reader or user of the program. And so it's really fun. I really try to use a lot of fun pop culture references so that it's a quick and fun read with lots of exploration and lots of creativity that can help folks understand how to use this technology in a way that benefits them right off the bat.
That's absolutely amazing. We'll definitely have to read it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Richard. It has been amazing to have you here, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Natalie.